Welcome to this little conversation, little talk, the story of the people on the move, the history, the life of the people on the move. And this will be the first ever conversation that we will do. And this moment we have a special guest with Father Dick. He came from South Africa, but originally from Ireland. While having a conversation at the table during this day, listening to his story, listening to his experience, especially his life, missionary life, being a man of God, being a man of people, for the people, in the midst of the people, especially the people who was suffering. He was, in a certain point, he was the voice of the voiceless. I can say this. That's why I was blessed, and I asked him if he is available to have this little conversation to share with us about his life. So welcome, Father Dick, for this first episode, let's say like this, and for your availability to share with us, to share with those who will listen to your story, your life, your mission, and your effort, especially.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Father. And welcome to Father Gerardo also. He will stay with us to share together, to ask some question also to Father Dick about his life, because he's the one who knows more Father Dick, because they were together in South Africa. Okay, the first in Cape Town. The first question that I'm going to ask is, could you please, even though I just introduced your name, so could you please tell us who are you, where are you from, who are you, especially who are you, meaning what is your work? Okay.
Well, I was born and baptized Dick O'Riordan. Come from the county, the district of Cork, in the very south of Ireland. And I was born there in 1944. And so I grew up there with my parents and brothers and sister, neighbors, on a small farm. So that's very important. I'm always so thankful to God that we had that blessing to grow up in the midst of nature. The land, the animals, the birds, the trees, the flowers, the harvest, all of these things. And always meeting and visiting and interacting with your neighbor. You know, we have a word in our language, Irish language, mehel. Mehel is when the people come together to do something. And so I remember especially as a young boy when there would be what we call the threshing, the harvest of the wheat and the barley from the fields. All the men and women from around would come to help in our harvest. It was a great time for us as children. There would be lots of Irish potatoes potatoes always. And I also remember the barrel of what we would, something like Guinness, which many people will know. We call it a stout. It's not a beer. It's not beer. Anyway, it's dark. And the men love
It's a sort of a traditional drink.
It's traditional, yeah. It's made from the barley.
Okay.
Yeah. And the men would drink that, and then all the women would cook the food and whatever. And the Irish love bacon. They would slaughter a pig for that occasion. Yeah. And we also had, believe it or not, a thing for the young people in the evening. The young people, we would all gather in the shed, and we had what was called a twist the bottle. They would twist the bottle. You laugh at this. And the bottle, if the spout is facing this way with this boy and this girl, this boy must kiss this girl.
Okay.
Yeah. And anyway, that's my childhood.
Okay.
And
can you tell us about your vocation? When it began? So, as you have written in your book, Roots in Exile, you have been always asked, how do you know that you are called by God, and where did this happen? This calling, your vocation. I mean,
it was very natural to me and many other young boys in I can even say in Ireland, in the country in those days. Catholic Church was the vast majority, 95% of people. So you're used, down the road your neighbor, he was a priest, and up here this girl became a nun. And so you grew up with this as a child even. Even my father's brother was a priest.
yeah.
So, and my father's uncle was a priest. So, nobody forced you. My parents never asked me, even to the day I went to the seminary, are you going to be a priest or do you want to? They never said. So they didn't influence me. Even my uncle Dick, who worked in England and used to come every August for his holidays, and he was always very good to us. He would take us out to visit our cousins, and he would buy us a block of ice cream in the town, and then he'd come with, what do you call it, of a honeycomb,
Okay.
a proper honeycomb, you know,
Yeah.
from the beehive, all these things. And so it was, for as long as I remember, I had thought of becoming a priest.
Okay.
Yeah. Even the primary school, one day, the priest, the poor Capuchin priests used to walk from this Cork city, which was about 2 miles from us, and they would visit our school. And I remember in the primary school, this priest asking, any boys here want to be priests or something like this? And I sort of did half put up my hand. He said, there's a boy there going to put up, and then I took it down. I didn't want to be, you know, singled out there. But then there were Irish missionary congregations called the Kiltegan and Columban. So there was Irish Saint Columba.
Okay.
And there were Irish missionary congregations. They worked all over. Japan, Korea, Africa, Latin America, I met them there. Philippines, the Kiltegans, Columbans, all these places. They used to come to our school, and they had a magazine, and they used to leave it there. And I always remember reading this magazine, and they had a photo of the priest in a canoe in the Philippines. And I said, that's where I want to go. Yeah.
So when did you start your formation?
Well, formation we had what we called secondary school, high school. It was in a minor seminary style. And
minor seminary, how many years?
Minor seminary, it's about 6 years, I suppose, after primary school, up until what we would call matriculation now. They call it leaving certificate there. And I think I was about 16 or 17 when I wrote my matric. Then that same year, that was in June, every year the exams in Ireland were middle of the year in June. Then you had the long summer holiday. And the seminary opened about the second week in September. So I waited for my uncle, Dick, to come so that he would apply for me. Because he was at that seminary. So I wanted to go to the one where he was. It's called All Hallows Missionary Seminary in Dublin. So anyway, I started there, I think it was the 9th of September, 1961. We had 6 years there, formation. We were ordained in 18th of June 1967. I had 3 months or so. I arrived in Cape Town on 18th of October 1967. And that's the story so far.
Okay, you wrote the book when you began your formation. You were asked by your rector where you want to go after the ordination. And at first you say, I want to go to the Philippines. But your rector explained that we don't have anybody there. The question is why you chose the Philippines?
Well, as I mentioned, from the primary school, that was still in my head. So, you see, as you say, even you can say the Irish nation, for many centuries the Irish were leaving Ireland. Even the religious, the monks in the monasteries, Irish did a lot of evangelization in Europe, actually, Irish monks. And saints. Saint Kilian Mbappe. Saint Kilian, Saint Columbanus. He went to the island of Iona in Scotland, etc. So, and because of the poverty, which I must mention, of the British occupation in Ireland, Irish people were reduced to slaves with nothing. So many people left the country to America and England, especially, to get work and to live there. So the missionaries also followed them, wherever they went. So then later, anyway, I ended up, the director said, no, where else? I said, we were able to choose. I said, how about Africa then, if the Philippines? No, he said, there's a society called the Society of African Missions. And, he said, we don't cater for, except South Africa, he said. We do have priests there. In fact, the first priest from our seminary went there in 1850 to what's called Algoa Bay, near Port Elizabeth, one of the dioceses. So quite a number of priests from our seminary went there as diocesan missionaries. It's an unusual group. We become incarnated into the diocese where we work. So one day I was going to play soccer and the bishop from Cape Town came in asking if there's any students available. I met him and that's history. He signed me on.
when you were doing your diaconate, you wrote in the book, quote, I'm quoting your words. I remember when I was ordained a deacon in 1966, while traveling late at night with my fellow deacons, we would stop our car by the roadside so that at 20 minutes at midnight, by the light of the silvery moon and the aid of our cars, we would solemnly chant and pray the evening prayer, the Psalms, before the reaching hour of midnight.
Exactly.
The question is, so it says a lot that you were living this spirituality very deep, I can say. So that's why you can survive until now after 57 years being a priest. Can you share with us this let's say this secret so that we can learn?
There's a word I'm trying to think of. Those years, we were young and innocent in many ways, and we were instructed and taught in the seminary. You pray the prayer of the church every day.
The breviary.
Yeah, the breviary, the office.
Yeah, the office.
Yeah, office we called it too. And so you must finish it every day before midnight, you see? So even when we would get together during the holidays and we'd go out and visit families and we'd have sing-song. Irish are always singing. They sing everywhere but in church. They don't sing good in church.
Okay.
But they sing parties everywhere. We used in my home place, any day of the week, we can have a sing-song the whole night. Neighbors come or cousins come and we sing. So, anyway, that was that. But that was the way we were being taught and formed in the seminary, to take this spirituality seriously. So that's why we laugh at it now. It's a bit crazy.
Even you said this office becoming it is a sort of your girlfriend. You bring.
Yes, we used to call it. We said, "This is our wife.
Your
this
wife,
is my wife. I'm married to you forever." We used to say about the breviary. Yeah.
Okay. Just we can just proceed to the next question. Well, we go directly to your mission. You were sent to South Africa. When was it? And how was it the first time you arrived in South Africa? Because I can imagine in that moment, in that year, the situation was a bit challenging. Okay.
We took 12 days. I traveled with another priest from Ireland who was going to another diocese. We traveled by ship, by boat, we used to call it. Boat from Southampton in England to Cape Town. It took 12 days on the boat. So I arrived in Cape Town 18th of October 1967. So there was a whole group at the docks. There was, I remember, a whole group of priests from our seminary who were there. They came to welcome me. They brought me to one of them, Father Pat Quinlan, to his presbytery for a big lunch and all this thing. So it was all very different. The thing I think I remember first was the climate. It's very different from Ireland. Ireland is not an extreme. It has no extreme, cold, cold, or hot, hot. It's always in between, sort of, what's called a moderate climate. Yeah, it rains a lot and you get sunshine sometimes, not a lot, etc. So in Cape Town, yet to me it was a bit uncomfortable, and clothes that I had were geared for Irish weather. But we got used to that. And also seeing lots of different races. In Ireland at that stage, you hardly saw any other people from other countries. Hardly any. But in Cape Town, in South Africa, majority of people are called black, African. And there are other races, and they have these apartheid terminology of coloured and Indian and black and Chinese and all this thing. So that was a very new thing to me. Yeah.
You just mentioned about apartheid. What was exactly, and how did you experience this experience, this situation? Because it was a problem, I can say.
Straight away, it was a problem. You literally walk into the post office, for example. You walk into the post office. They have it's the one building, but they had two separate doors, and there was a partition going through.
Okay.
Up to the desks, right? This far. Then the same people of office staff were serving all the people, but the white people were on one side, and all other races were on the other side. So,
separated.
That was what apartheid means, apart.
Ah, okay.
It was geared to keep people apart. And now they've made laws. Apartheid and discrimination, racial discrimination, was going on for centuries, all over the world, in South Africa, through the settlers, the Dutch and the British and all of that. Apartheid was going on for many years. But in 1948, after the elections, the National Party, they were called, they started to make laws, very harsh laws, to keep people apart. But there was an example. I'd go into a building and you had separate lifts to go up to the second or fourth floor. You had a lift for whites, and then they often said, a lift for non-whites, a negative term. Non-whites and what do they call it? Goods. The goods, bringing parcels. So it showed you. The whites had a separate lift, and all other races, and if there are people bringing in bags of whatever it was, anything, or luggage, or they were all in the same lift, the other lift.
In such situation, how did you do you minister your mission? I mean, as a priest, you were sent there to minister as a priest, as a Catholic priest. So how did you do your mission, and how you enter in that word, inside that word?
I had to feel my way. It's all totally new, and I found it at the beginning very shocking, disturbing, and worse when I found in the parish we had 2 Legion of Mary groups in the one parish. Part of the parish was in the place that became famous, District 6. where coloured people were forced out of there. And the other part was white area, where whites were able to live. But it was one parish. So now they had decided in the parish, the priests, before I came, there was a white Legion of Mary group and a coloured Legion of Mary group. So I thought, this is...
So they pray separately?
They meet everything separately. They have meet on different nights. They never had anything to do with each other. So this was a shock. You go even to a park, and you have written on the benches in the park, whites only, non-whites. So they lumped, you see all the others, they didn't call them non-white. It's a negative term to describe people. Just the way we also have the same, I think, problem. We talk about Catholic and non-Catholic. It's not a correct way to describe somebody as a not. You are not something. What are you? Who are you? You know? So that was the way they described that. And to summarize that, I was so shocked of that, I wanted to leave. I wanted to leave South Africa. This is what they call petty apartheid, the laws keeping people apart, you know, in the different places. Post office, shops, restaurants, only whites, cinemas, only for whites. Then they would have much poorer areas, shanty areas or reserves for black people. They kept black people living they were forced to live in separate area from coloured people living in a separate area, and the white people who had a big choice of any of the places they wanted to live. They had a big choice of all the beaches around Cape Town, wherever they wanted to live, you know? Yeah. So that's what I was learning about the country. That's what I had to get used to. Don't worry about a thing, 'cause everything's gonna be alright. Don't worry about a thing, 'cause everything's gonna be alright. High with the rising sun, outside my window, trees of melodies pure and free. This is my message to you.
Wow.
Don't worry.
Ja.
Is it niemand deze moe? Deze
I
moe.
remember that.
Is a moe.
Remember that one.
You don't have to listen to him. You don't have to listen to him. He's a moe. Hij verstaat niks. He doesn't understand anything.
No.
So